In a teenager's bedroom, a small server is quietly running one of the most dangerous websites on the internet. That machine powers the Pirate Bay, a platform accused of costing Hollywood studios and music labels billions, while openly challenging the very idea of copyright enforcement. To the entertainment industry, it isn't just a website. It's a rebellion. So when Swedish police move in, it looks like the end. At dawn, 53 armed officers raid the data center hosting the site. They tear out servers, collect hard drives, bag cables, and strip the operation down to metal and dust. Authorities celebrate. Prosecutors give confident statements. Hollywood executives believe they've finally won. To the world, it appears the Internet's most notorious piracy empire has been crushed. But 3 days later, the Pirate Bay is back online. Not quietly. Not cautiously. Mockingly. Its homepage now shows a pirate ship blasting cannon fire at the Hollywood sign, as if to say, "You tried. You failed." And that is the moment the real fear begins. Because this was never just about one website surviving a raid. It was about something far more unsettling. If a platform could lose its hardware, its founders, and its physical base, and still return almost instantly, then maybe the internet had become something governments could no longer control. So how did 3 Swedish outsiders build something that refused to die? And what did they understand about the internet that billion-dollar corporations still didn't? Chapter 1. Built Under a Bed. Stockholm, 2001. A young man named Gottfrid Svarthome, later known online as Anakata, sits on the floor of his bedroom surrounded by cables and improvised hardware. Under his bed, a homemade server hums away. He's only 19, but already obsessed with encryption, networks, and the idea of information moving freely beyond control. A few years later, he teams up with Fredrik Nage and Peter Sunde, 2 like-minded allies connected to Pirate Byron, a Swedish anti-copyright group. Together, they create a BitTorrent tracker almost as an experiment, a side project meant to make file sharing faster, easier, and harder to police. That project becomes the Pirate Bay. At first, it grows like many underground internet communities do, quietly, chaotically, and faster than anyone expects. By late 2004, tens of thousands of users are swapping everything from open-source software to blockbuster films. Every new download pushes more traffic through Gottfrid's personal setup. What began as a hobby is turning into something much bigger. The demand becomes too large for a bedroom server, so they launch PRQ, a hosting company built around one simple philosophy: host anything, log nothing, and never cooperate unless absolutely forced to. While other providers back down under legal pressure, PRQ develops a reputation for doing the opposite. Lawsuits, threats, cease and desist letters, they treat them almost like trophies. That attitude becomes legendary when DreamWorks sends a legal demand over copyrighted content. Instead of apologizing, Gottfrid responds with open ridicule, essentially telling them that Swedish law is not American law, and that their intimidation means nothing. The exchange goes public. It spreads across the internet. And instead of hurting the Pirate Bay, it makes it famous. Every legal threat becomes free marketing. Every attack makes them bigger. By 2005, the Pirate Bay is no longer a fringe site. It is one of the internet's fastest-growing hubs, processing massive amounts of traffic through custom code, stripped-down infrastructure, and a philosophy built around resilience. The site looks simple on the surface, just a logo, a search bar, and endless torrents, but beneath that simplicity is a system designed to survive pressure. The more people use it, the stronger it becomes. It is no longer just a website. It is a decentralized organism. And that is exactly what terrifies Hollywood. Chapter 2. The Raid. By early 2006, pressure from the American entertainment industry is intense. Lobbyists push hard through diplomatic channels. Swedish officials, who had once shown limited interest in internet enforcement, begin to feel international heat. The message is clear: do something. Then comes a warning. Just hours before the raid, Gottfrid reportedly gets word through industry contacts that police action is imminent. But this isn't a surprise. He and his team have been preparing for this exact moment. Their disaster plan is simple. If Swedish servers fall, backups outside the country take over. Encrypted copies of the site's database are already stored abroad. Recovery paths are mapped out. The real value of the Pirate Bay was never the machines sitting in a Stockholm server room. It was the data, the code, and the architecture behind it, and those were built to move. So when police stormed 10 locations on May 31, 2006, they are seizing equipment, not killing the system. At first, though, it looks devastating. Television stations report the site has been shut down. Headlines announce victory. The domain goes dark. Supporters panic. Rights holders congratulate authorities on what appears to be a decisive strike. But the celebration is premature. Within 72 hours, the Pirate Bay is back. The team restores the service from servers in Amsterdam, reroutes traffic, and relaunches the site with an even more provocative attitude than before. What was supposed to be a fatal blow becomes the best publicity campaign the platform could ever have asked for. Traffic surges. Then it explodes. New users flood in out of curiosity, anger, and admiration. The site starts crashing, not because the police damaged it, but because so many people are trying to reach it at once. The lesson is humiliating for authorities. They attacked the visible shell, but the real system had already evolved beyond any single physical location. And the founders understand something their enemies still don't. A platform with no true center cannot be destroyed the old way. So they harden it further. More mirrors go live. More international hosting paths are prepared. The code becomes easier to redeploy. Backups spread across multiple countries. The Pirate Bay stops acting like a normal company and starts acting like a digital insurgency. When reporters ask how they plan to survive the next raid, the answer is basically, "We're already ready." And this time, everyone believes them. Chapter 3. The Trial. If the servers can't be silenced, then the people behind them can be targeted instead. That becomes the new strategy. In February 2009, the founders of the Pirate Bay finally face trial in Stockholm. The courtroom is packed with journalists, activists, industry observers, and supporters wearing pirate symbols like political badges. The defense table sit 4 men: Gottfried Svartholm, Fredrik Nage, Peter Sunde, and businessman Carl Lundstrom, who helped finance early infrastructure. The prosecution presents them as operators of a massive criminal machine, men who made money by enabling large-scale copyright infringement. The defense argues something much more specific. The Pirate Bay did not host the copyrighted files themselves. It merely indexed torrent data and connected users. In other words, they claim it was a search layer, not the storage vault. The case quickly becomes bigger than technical details. It turns into a cultural fight over the future of ownership, distribution, and whether old copyright laws still make sense in a borderless digital world. There are absurd moments. At one point, technical explanations in court are reportedly so clumsy that members of the defense correct misunderstandings themselves, exposing just how badly legal institutions understand the technology they are trying to prosecute. But symbolism doesn't save them. In April 2009, the verdict arrives: guilty. All 4 are convicted of assisting copyright infringement. Prison terms are handed down. Financial penalties are imposed. The sentence is meant to send a warning far beyond Sweden. But even then, the Pirate Bay doesn't disappear. It keeps running. Appeals follow. Sentences shift slightly. Damages rise. Eventually, Sweden's highest court refuses further review, making the punishments final. Authorities can now collect. But by then, one of the key men is already gone. Gottfried Svartholm vanishes. Chapter 4. The Fugitive. While some of his co-defendants remain visible, speak publicly, or eventually surrender, Gottfried slips into the shadows. Reports place him in Cambodia. Rumors circulate about him moving quietly through Southeast Asia, living out of sight and staying connected through encrypted channels. He becomes a kind of ghost figure, part hacker legend, part fugitive, part ideological symbol. Meanwhile, the Pirate Bay keeps evolving without him. In one of its smartest technical moves, the site gradually shifts away from relying on traditional torrent files and leans heavily into magnet links. That matters because magnet links are harder to target. They are lighter, more abstract, and less tied to physical files that can be seized or deleted. The platform becomes even leaner, even easier to clone, even harder to kill. Backup copies of the database circulate. Mirrors multiply. Proxies appear. The founders are no longer required for daily survival. The thing they built has outgrown them. That may be the most important transformation of all. The Pirate Bay is no longer just a project run by a few Swedish rebels. It is now a distributed idea with infrastructure attached. And ideas are much harder to arrest. Still, Gottfried's personal story is about to turn darker. Because when authorities finally catch up to him, piracy is no longer the only issue on the table. Chapter 5. From Pirate to Cybercrime Defendant. In August 2012, Cambodian police, working with Swedish authorities, arrest Gottfried Svarthome in Phnom Penh. After months on the run, he is taken into custody and quickly returned to Sweden. At first, it seems he is simply being brought back to serve his Pirate Bay sentence. But prosecutors have more waiting for him. He is soon linked to serious hacking-related allegations involving unauthorized access to government systems and attempted fraud. Investigators claim that during his time as a fugitive, machines connected to him were used in intrusions targeting Swedish public infrastructure, including systems tied to tax administration and identity records. The image of Gottfried changes overnight. He is no longer being described merely as a copyright radical or digital dissenter. Now he is being painted as a threat to national infrastructure. He denies the accusations, arguing that his computer had itself been compromised, that someone else had used his machine as a relay point, and that he was being blamed for actions carried out through infected equipment. There is some technical basis for that claim, but the courts remain unconvinced. He is convicted in Sweden on major hacking-related charges, though not on every allegation brought against him. Then Denmark steps in. Danish investigators connect him to one of the most severe cyber intrusions in Scandinavian history, a breach involving sensitive systems operated by CSC, a contractor handling police and social services data. Personal identification records for millions of Danish citizens are exposed. He is extradited, tried again, and in 2014, convicted in Denmark. The sentence is harsh, one of the most severe hacking punishments the country had handed down at the time. By now, the story has moved far beyond file sharing. The mythology surrounding Gottfried fractures. To some, he remains a brilliant anti-establishment coder. To others, he has crossed into something much darker and far less defensible. After prison terms in both Sweden and Denmark, he is finally released in 2015. The long chase is over. But the Pirate Bay is still there. Chapter 6. The site that outlived its founders. By the time its founders have been arrested, tried, convicted, chased across borders, and imprisoned, the Pirate Bay is no longer dependent on any of them. That is the real achievement, and the real nightmare for its enemies. The site survives raids. It survives lawsuits. It survives domain seizures. It survives bad press, criminal cases, and the removal of the people who made it famous. Its dominance fades over time as streaming services, private sharing systems, and new platforms reshape the Internet. But disappearance is not the same as defeat. Even after years of legal warfare, the Pirate Bay name remains alive through mirrors, clones, and proxies scattered across the web. The system bends. It mutates. It reappears. And that is the brutal lesson it leaves behind. You cannot easily destroy something that has no single center, no permanent home, and no final off-switch. The Pirate Bay wasn't powerful because it was untouchable. It was powerful because it understood the Internet better than the institutions trying to control it. Governments thought in terms of buildings, borders, and hardware. Its founders thought in terms of code, copies, and redundancy.